The research vessel Horizon drifted silently through the Carina Nebula's outer rim, its sophisticated sensors probing the darkness for signs of the signal that had brought them 12 light-years from Earth. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the bridge's main viewport, her dark eyes reflecting the distant stars as she studied the latest data streams. "Another anomaly detected, Doctor," announced Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez from his station. "Same frequency as before, but stronger this time." Sarah nodded, her fingers dancing across her tablet as she analyzed the incoming data. The signal they'd been tracking for the past 3 months was unlike anything humanity had encountered before, a repeating pattern that defied natural explanation, yet remained frustratingly indecipherable. Captain Elena Torres stepped onto the bridge, her weathered features tightening as she reviewed the sensor readings. "How confident are we about these coordinates, Dr. Chen?" "The triangulation is solid, Captain. Whatever's broadcasting that signal is less than 500,000 kilometers from our current position." Sarah highlighted a region of space on the main display. "There's something else. The signal's pattern has changed. It's responding to our presence." The bridge crew fell silent as the implications sank in. The Horizon was about to make history. Humanity's first contact with indisputable evidence of alien intelligence. "All stations, yellow alert," Torres commanded. "Engineering, maintain our electromagnetic cloak. Dr. Chen, prepare the first contact protocols we discussed." Before Sarah could respond, the ship's sensors erupted with warnings. A massive vessel had appeared seemingly from nowhere, its hull composed of what appeared to be living crystal that pulsed with internal light. It dwarfed the Horizon, making their state-of-the-art research vessel seem like a mere shuttle in comparison. "Multiple energy signatures detected," Rodriguez reported, his voice tight. "They're scanning us." "Wait, they're powering weapons." "Open a channel. All frequencies," Torres ordered. "This is Captain Elena Torres of the Earth vessel Horizon. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and understanding." The response came in perfect English, though the voice carried an otherworldly harmonic that sent chills down Sarah's spine. "This is Archon Zixtal of the Zrin Collective. You have entered restricted space and accessed a protected beacon. Your presence here violates laws older than your species." Sarah stepped forward. "Archon, we mean no offense. We detected the signal and came to investigate. We had no way of knowing this region was restricted." "Ignorance does not excuse transgression," the Archon replied. "The beacon you detected was placed here as a test. One your species has failed. Your kind was meant to receive the signal in another 1,000 years, when you had achieved sufficient technological and cultural maturity." Torres kept her voice steady. "We're willing to withdraw immediately and forget what we found here." "There's no need for conflict." "It is too late for that, Captain." The alien vessel's crystalline surface began to pulse more rapidly. "Your species has demonstrated dangerous levels of advancement without corresponding wisdom. The collective cannot risk allowing such potential threats to develop unchecked. We will escort you to our nearest facility for processing. Resist, and we will be forced to take more severe action." Sarah's mind raced. The signal, the test, the collective's reaction. It all pointed to something bigger. "Archon, before you take action, consider this. We found your beacon not through random chance, but through careful scientific study. We deciphered enough of its patterns to know it was artificial. Doesn't that demonstrate exactly the kind of advancement you're measuring?" There was a pause, and for a moment, Sarah thought she might have gotten through to them. Then multiple smaller vessels emerged from the crystalline mothership, taking up attack positions around the Horizon. "Your achievement in finding the beacon is precisely what concerns us," the Archon responded. "You're advancing too quickly, without the stabilizing influence of proper guidance. The collective has seen countless species destroy themselves, or worse, destroy others, by gaining power before wisdom. We will not allow it to happen again." Captain Torres subtly signaled her tactical officer while keeping her attention on the diplomatic channel. "Surely there's room for discussion here. Let us prove ourselves worthy of." The horizon shuddered as a blue-white beam from one of the smaller vessels struck their shields. "That was a warning," the Archon announced. "The next will not be. Power down your systems and prepare for boarding." Sarah watched as Torres's hand moved to the ship's emergency protocols. They both knew the Horizon couldn't win a fight against these vessels, but they might have another option. During their study of the beacon signal, Sarah's team had discovered something in its underlying mathematics, a potential weakness in the very technology the collective seemed to be using. "Captain," Sarah whispered, "remember that harmonic resonance pattern we found in the signal? I think their ships used the same principle for their power systems." Torres's eyes widened slightly as she understood. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, prepare to transmit Dr. Chen's signal analysis on my Mark full broadcast." The alien vessels drew closer, their crystalline hulls humming with building energy. The Archon's voice came again, tinged with what might have been regret. "Last warning, Horizon. Submit, or we will be forced to disable your vessel." Torres straightened in her chair. "Archon, we appreciate your concern for galactic stability. But if humanity has proven anything throughout its history, it's that we don't respond well to threats. We'd rather take our chances. Now, Lieutenant." Rodriguez transmitted the modified beacon signal. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the crystalline ships began to vibrate, their perfect formations wavering as the harmonic disruption spread through their hulls. They didn't explode or shut down. The effect was far more subtle than that. But their weapons powered down as their systems automatically compensated for the unexpected resonance. "Fascinating," the Archon's voice carried genuine surprise. "You weaponized our own testing signal against us, not through brute force, but through understanding and adaptation." The massive crystalline vessel's aggressive posture shifted, its smaller escorts retreating to defensive positions. Perhaps we have been too hasty in our judgment." "We don't want to fight, Archon," Torres replied. "But we won't simply submit to imprisonment either. Why not take this opportunity to really test us? Not through hidden beacons and predetermined timetables, but through actual interaction." There was a long pause before the Archon responded. "Your proposal has merit, Captain Torres. But know this, you will be watched. The collective's judgment is not easily swayed, but neither is it immutable. What happens next will depend entirely on your actions." As the alien vessels began to withdraw, Sarah couldn't help but smile. Humanity's first contact hadn't gone exactly as planned, but they'd managed to turn a potential disaster into an opportunity. The real test, she knew, was just beginning. What they didn't realize was that their encounter with the Zrin collective had set in motion events that would reshape the galaxy and humanity's place in it forever. 2 days after their encounter with the Zrin collective, the Horizon maintained a careful orbit around a rogue asteroid in neutral space. Dr. Sarah Chen hadn't slept much, her mind consumed by the patterns she'd discovered in the alien beacon signal. Something about the mathematical structure troubled her. It was too perfect, too precise, as if it had been designed not just to test, but to teach. Energy spike detected, Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, breaking her concentration. "Coming from the same vector as before." Captain Torres nodded grimly. "Looks like our friends are back." Battle stations. But instead of the imposing crystalline warships they expected, a single smaller vessel emerged from Fold space. Its design was Rin, but something was different. Its crystal structure appeared darker, almost opaque. "We're being hailed," Rodriguez reported. "Different frequency than the collective used." "Put it through," Torres ordered, sharing a questioning glance with Sarah. The figure that appeared on their view screen was unmistakably Zrin, but unlike Archon Zixtal, this one's crystalline form was shot through with veins of darkness. "I am Nexus Crivel of the Shadowed Light," the alien announced. "What I'm about to tell you must not reach the collective's leadership. Your species is in grave danger." Sarah stepped forward. "What kind of danger?" "The beacon you discovered wasn't just a test," Crivel explained. "It's part of a vast network of devices left by the precursors. those who came before even the collective. We believed they were meant to guide developing civilizations, but we were wrong. They're weapon triggers. Torres leaned forward in her command chair. Weapon triggers? For what? The precursors built fail-safes into the galaxy itself, Crivel continued. Insurance against what they called evolutionary wildcards, species that developed too quickly or unpredictably. When your ship decoded part of the beacon's signal, you inadvertently activated an ancient protocol. The collective's leadership is now bound by laws older than our civilization to prevent your species from advancing further. By imprisoning us? Limiting our technology? Sarah asked. Crivel's crystalline form darkened further. That was never the true plan. The Archon's response was merely the first phase. Even now, deep within collective space, an ancient weapon is charging. One designed to reduce your entire species to a pre-industrial state. Everything electronic on Earth will be destroyed. Your civilization will collapse. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Billions would die in such an event, and humanity would be thrown back centuries, if they survived at all. Why are you telling us this? Torres demanded. Why betray your own people? Because not all of us agree with blindly following the precursor's protocols, Crivel replied. A growing faction within the collective believes we should judge species by their actions, not by arbitrary timetables set eons ago. Your response to the Archon proved that humanity possesses not just intelligence, but wisdom. The wisdom to seek understanding before violence, to defend without destroying. Sarah's mind raced through the possibilities. The beacon's signal, when we used it against your ships, we only understood a fraction of its complexity. There has to be more encoded within it. Indeed, Crivel confirmed. The full signal contains both the weapon's activation codes and its shutdown protocols. The precursors believed in balance. Every weapon they created had a counterpart, every lock a key. But decoding it will take time that you don't have. The weapon will be fully charged in less than 72 hours. Can you help us? Torres asked. Your understanding of the technology must be greater than ours. Crivel's form pulsed with what might have been regret. Direct interference would trigger additional protocols. But there is a facility deep in what you call the Carina Nebula. It contains a repository of precursor knowledge. If you can reach it, if you can understand what you find there, you might be able to stop this. I can give you its coordinates, but nothing more. And we're just supposed to trust you. Rodriguez asked from his station. This could be a trap. Lieutenant has a point, Torres agreed. Why should we believe any of this? Crivel's response was to transmit a massive data package to their systems. These are the sensor readings from the weapon's activation. Verify them yourself. And know that if I wanted to trap you, I need only have alerted the collective to your current position. Sarah quickly analyzed the incoming data. Captain, these readings match patterns we detected in the beacon, but at a much larger scale. If this is a deception, it's an incredibly sophisticated one. Torres studied Crivel's image for a long moment before making her decision. Send us the coordinates. But know this, if you're lying, if this is a trap, we'll make sure the entire galaxy knows about this supposed shadowed faction of yours. Fair enough, Crivel replied. The coordinates are transmitting now. One last thing. The facility is guarded by automated systems that date back to the precursor era. They will not distinguish between human and Zrin. Any approach will be seen as hostile. The alien's form began to fade. Good luck. The future of two species may depend on what you discover there. As Crivel's ship vanished back into fold space, Torres turned to her crew. Options. Sarah stepped up to the main display, highlighting the transmitted coordinates. The facility's location is deep in a radiation belt that would fry our shields in minutes. But if we can modify our deflectors using what we learned from the beacon's signal, we might be able to create a harmonic resonance that would let us slip through. Like turning their own technology against them again, Torres mused. How long would it take? With the entire science team working on it, Maybe 48 hours. But Captain, Sarah hesitated. If Crivel is telling the truth, we'll only have 24 hours after that to find what we need and shut down the weapon. Torres' expression hardened with determination. Then we better not waste any time. All hands, this is the captain speaking. As of this moment, we're on an emergency footing. Everything else is secondary to modifying those shields. The Earth itself is counting on us, even if they don't know it yet. As the crew rushed to their tasks, Sarah took one last look at the sensor data from the weapon's activation. The mathematics were beautiful in their complexity, but terrifying in their purpose. Somewhere in all those numbers lay the key to humanity's survival, if only they could find it in time. What they didn't know was that their race against time was being watched by more than just Crivel's shadowed faction. Forces were gathering in the darkness between the stars, and the true test of humanity's worth was about to begin. The horizon cut through the luminescent gases of the Carina Nebula, its modified shields humming with an alien resonance that made the deck plates vibrate beneath their feet. Dr. Sarah Chen monitored the harmonics carefully. One fluctuation in the field could expose them to lethal levels of radiation. Shield modifications are holding, she reported, though the strain of 48 hours without sleep showed in her voice. We're approaching the coordinates. Captain Torres stood at the tactical display, studying the sensor readings of the space ahead. Life support status. Recyclers are at maximum, Lieutenant Rodriguez answered. But the radiation is taking its toll. We've got maybe 2 hours before systems start failing. Through the main viewport, a structure began to materialize from the nebula's swirling clouds, a massive installation that seemed to be carved from a single piece of dark crystal, its surface etched with patterns that pulsed with internal light. Unlike the clean, geometric designs of Zrin technology, this was organic, almost predatory in its appearance. Multiple defense platforms detected, Rodriguez warned. They're active, but they're not targeting us. Sarah checked her readings. The shield modifications, they're not just protecting us from radiation. The harmonic resonance matches frequencies in the facility's own systems. It thinks we belong here. Small favors, Torres muttered. Take us in. Engineering, prepare for emergency shutdown procedures the moment we're docked. We need to conserve every minute of life support we can. The horizon glided toward a crystalline aperture that irised open at their approach. Inside was a docking bay large enough to hold a dozen ships their size, though they were the only vessel present. As they settled into place, the bay sealed behind them, and the punishing radiation levels began to drop. Atmosphere detected outside, Rodriguez reported. Breathable, but barely. Temperature is just above freezing. Torres nodded. Assemble the away team. Dr. Chen, you're with me. Lieutenant, you have the bridge. If we're not back in 90 minutes, take the ship and warn Earth. They'll need every second of preparation they can get. The facility's interior was a maze of crystalline corridors that seemed to shift and change as they walked, the patterns of light within the walls responding to their presence. Sarah's handheld scanner, modified with their understanding of the beacon's technology, led them deeper into the structure. The energy readings are getting stronger, she reported. Whatever's generating them is massive, taking up several levels of the facility. More company, Torres warned, gesturing to wall-mounted devices that tracked their movement. Defense turrets, still not firing. Captain, Sarah called out, stopping at an intersection. Look at these markings. She pointed to symbols etched into the crystal walls. They're similar to patterns we found in the beacon's signal, but there's something different about them. They're older, somehow, more primitive. Torres studied the symbols. Can you read them? Not exactly, but Sarah's eyes widened as she traced the patterns. These aren't just decorative. They're mathematical expressions, the same kind we found in the beacon, but showing their development. It's like someone left their research notes on the walls. Before Torres could respond, a holographic image materialized in the corridor ahead, a crystalline figure similar to the Zrin, but more fluid in form, its surface rippling with complex patterns. A precursor, Sarah breathed. The figure spoke, its voice resonating through the crystal walls themselves. Identity protocol satisfied. Quarantine status maintained. You have accessed this facility using harmonics derived from beacon technology. State your purpose. Torres stepped forward. We're here to prevent the weapons activation. Our species shouldn't be judged by arbitrary timetables. The hologram rippled. The protocols exist for a reason. Species that advance too quickly become threats to themselves and others. The fail-safes we created ensure balanced development across the galaxy by destroying civilizations that develop differently than expected. Sarah challenged. That's not balance, it's control. You question our methods, the hologram noted. Yet you used our own technology to breach this facility. You demonstrate both the intelligence to understand our systems and the aggression to turn them to your purposes. You proved the necessity of the protocols. No, Sarah insisted. We proved their flaw. We used your technology not to destroy or conquer, but to protect ourselves and seek understanding. We're here trying to prevent destruction, not cause it. The hologram studied them silently for a long moment. Your argument has merit, but the protocols cannot be simply deactivated. They must be satisfied. How? Torres demanded. What do you want us to prove? The weapons activation sequence contains tests, problems that must be solved. They are not merely mathematical. They require understanding of concepts fundamental to universal harmony. If you can solve them, you will have proven your species' wisdom matches its intelligence. Sarah stepped closer to the hologram. And if we fail, then the weapon will activate as intended, and your civilization will be reset to a more manageable level of development. The hologram gestured, and a new doorway opened in the crystalline wall. Enter, if you dare. But know that any attempt to force a solution or circumvent the tests will result in immediate activation. Torres looked at Sarah. How long to solve these tests? Sarah checked their remaining time. Less than an hour before the weapon reaches full charge. Not long enough to be thorough. Then we'll have to be brilliant instead, Torres replied. Lead the way, Doctor. They stepped through the doorway into a vast chamber whose walls were covered in flowing mathematical expressions and pulsing patterns of light. At its center stood a crystalline console that seemed to grow from the floor itself. The first test begins, the hologram announced. Show us humanity's worth. Sarah approached the console, her mind already racing through the patterns she'd studied in the beacon signal. But as she began to understand what she was seeing, she realized these tests would challenge far more than just their mathematical knowledge. They would test the very essence of what made humanity unique, their ability to see patterns where others saw chaos, to find harmony in discord, and to understand that true wisdom sometimes meant breaking the rules to serve a greater purpose. The race against time had begun, and with it, humanity's chance to prove they deserved their place among the stars. Sarah's fingers flew across the crystalline console as equations and patterns flowed through the chamber's holographic displays. With less than 40 minutes remaining before the weapon reached full charge, every second was precious. This can't be right, she muttered, studying a particularly complex sequence. Captain, these aren't just mathematical problems. They're modeling entire civilizations. Look at this pattern here. It shows the rise and fall of societies based on their technological development rate. Torres stepped closer, her expression grim. Can you solve it? That's just it. I don't think we're supposed to. Sarah's eyes lit up with sudden understanding. These aren't tests to be solved. They're scenarios to be understood. The precursors weren't trying to prevent advancement. They were trying to prevent repetition of their own mistakes. The holographic precursor materialized beside them. You begin to comprehend. Show us your understanding. Sarah input a new sequence into the console, not trying to solve the equation but instead modifying it to show alternative outcomes. Your civilization advanced too quickly. You created weapons and technologies without fully understanding their implications, But instead of learning from that mistake, you tried to prevent it by controlling others. The protocols protect the galaxy, the hologram stated. No, Torres interjected, catching on to Sarah's insight. They protect your legacy. You're not testing species to see if they're advancing too quickly. You're testing to see if they'll repeat your errors. Suddenly, alarms blared through the facility. Multiple ships detected entering the system. Rodriguez's voice came through their comms. It's the Collective's main fleet, and they're charging weapons. The hologram rippled with new patterns. The protocols are absolute. Interference will not be tolerated. Wait, Sarah called out. You want to see if we'll repeat your mistakes. Watch this. She entered a final sequence into the console. Not an answer, but a question. The holographic displays filled with humanity's history, their wars, their struggles, their triumphs and failures. We've made mistakes, she continued. Terrible ones. We've created weapons that could destroy our world, technologies that threatened our very existence. But look what we did next. The displays showed international cooperation, nuclear disarmament treaties, environmental protection efforts, and space exploration initiatives. We learned, we adapted, we chose to do better. And yet you continue to advance, the hologram observed. Because we understand something you didn't, Torres added. Progress isn't the enemy. Refusing to learn from mistakes is. Your protocols don't prevent destruction. They guarantee it by denying species the chance to learn from their own errors. The facility shuddered as the first shots from the collective fleet struck its outer defenses. The hologram studied their displays intently. Your argument is compelling, but the weapon is already charging. Its protocols cannot be simply deactivated. Then help us modify them. Sarah pleaded. You created these systems to be adaptable. That's why every piece of your technology can be understood and repurposed. You built in the potential for change. Another blast rocked the facility. Captain, Rodriguez's voice crackled through. Their ships are breaking through the radiation belt. They're using some kind of concentrated energy beam to clear a path. The hologram's form became more solid, more present. What you suggest is unprecedented. The protocols have stood for millions of years. And in all that time, Torres pressed, how many civilizations have you destroyed? How many species never got the chance to prove they could learn from their mistakes? You wanted to prevent the repetition of your errors, but you've been repeating the worst one of all, playing gods with other species' futures. Sarah worked as they talked, her fingers dancing across the console. Look at these harmonics. The weapon's energy signature. It's not just destructive. The patterns suggest it could be modified, transformed into something else. The hologram moved closer to the console, its form analyzing her work. You propose to alter the fundamental nature of a precursor weapon. The risks are incalculable. Less risky than destroying an entire civilization. Sarah countered. You want proof we can handle advanced technology responsibly. Let us prove it by turning a weapon of destruction into a tool for understanding. The facility shook more violently as the collective's weapons found their mark. Warning lights flashed across the console. The weapon was nearly fully charged. A decision must be made, the hologram announced. The protocols demand action. Torres stepped forward, her voice firm. Then let us show you a different kind of action. Let us prove that the true test of wisdom isn't in preventing mistakes, but in learning from them. Give us the chance your protocols never gave anyone else. The hologram's form pulsed with intense patterns of light, its crystalline structure seeming to reach into the very walls of the facility. For a moment, everything went silent. Even the sounds of battle outside seemed to fade away. Then the hologram spoke, its voice resonating with new harmonics. Your argument represents a perspective we had not considered. Perhaps it is we who have failed to learn. The console beneath Sarah's fingers transformed, its controls shifting into new configurations. You have 30 seconds to implement your modifications. Choose wisely. Sarah's hands flew across the altered controls, her mind racing to implement the changes she'd theorized. As the weapon reached full charge and the collective fleet closed in, humanity's fate hung in the balance, not just their survival, but their chance to prove that wisdom could come from understanding rather than control. What happened next would either mark the end of human civilization or the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history, one written not by ancient protocols, but by the choices of those who dared to challenge them. The crystalline facility hummed with power as Sarah's modifications took hold. The weapon's energy, instead of focusing into a destructive beam, began to spread through the facility's systems in waves of shifting light. Outside, the collective fleet had surrounded the installation, their weapons charged and ready. "What did you do?" Torres asked, watching as the patterns of light changed throughout the chamber. "I inverted the weapon's primary harmonics," Sarah explained, her fingers still moving across the console. "Instead of destroying technology, it should now interface with it, create understanding rather than destruction." The holographic precursor observed silently as the transformation took place. On their comms, Rodriguez's voice crackled through. "Captain, the collective ships are holding position. Wait, we're being hailed by their flagship." "Put it through to us here," Torres ordered. Archon Zixtal's image appeared in the chamber. "You have accessed restricted systems and violated fundamental protocols. Surrender now, or we will have no choice but tow." The Archon stopped, his crystalline form shifting as new energy patterns washed over his ship. What is this?" The weapon had reached full power, but instead of the devastating pulse they had feared, it released a cascade of information. The complete history of the precursors, their rise, their mistakes, and their desperate attempt to prevent other species from following their path. The data flowed through both the facility and the collective ships, impossible to ignore or deny. "By the first light," Zixtal whispered, "these patterns, they're changing our very understanding." Sarah nodded. The weapon wasn't just designed to destroy technology. It was built to preserve and transmit knowledge. We just needed to unlock its true purpose. The holographic precursor's form expanded, filling the chamber with shifting light. "You have done more than modify a weapon. You have proven a fundamental truth that we, in our arrogance, forgot. True wisdom comes not from preventing mistakes, but from understanding them." Through their neural links, the entire collective was experiencing the revelation. Centuries of blind adherence to ancient protocols were being replaced by direct understanding of why those protocols had been created and why they needed to change. "Stand down, weapons," Zixtal commanded his fleet. "The humans have not violated the protocols. They have fulfilled their true purpose." Torres stepped forward. "And what purpose is that?" The hologram's response resonated through the facility. "To find species capable of breaking cycles of destruction. Our protocols were never meant to be permanent. They were waiting for someone to prove they could be transformed." Like the beacon, Sarah realized. It wasn't just a test or a trigger. It was an invitation to those who could understand it. "Indeed," the hologram confirmed, "and you have exceeded our highest expectations. You did not simply try to disable the weapon or escape its effects. You sought to understand it, to transform it into something beneficial for all." Zixtal's image shifted, showing new patterns of light within his crystalline form. "The collective has existed for millennia, believing we were protecting the galaxy. But we were merely maintaining patterns of control that we ourselves didn't fully understand." The weapon's transformed energy continued to pulse through the facility and the fleet, creating a network of shared knowledge and understanding. Humanity's first contact, which had begun with suspicion and threat, had become something entirely unprecedented, a moment of genuine connection between species. "There will need to be changes," Zixtal announced. "The collective cannot continue as mere enforcers of ancient protocols. We must become facilitators of understanding." "And humanity?" Torres asked. The hologram's form stabilized into something more definitive, more present. "Your species has proven itself not just worthy of advancement, but capable of teaching others. The protocols are not merely satisfied. They are transcended. Sarah checked the facility's readings. The energy transformation is complete. The weapon, it's not just deactivated. It's become something new. A repository of knowledge, open to all who are ready to understand it. As it should be, the hologram agreed. Knowledge without wisdom brings destruction. But wisdom without knowledge leads to stagnation. You have shown us a better path, one of balance and growth. Tori smiled. So what happens now? Now, Sixtel replied, we begin anew. The collective will withdraw its restrictions on human space. More than that, we propose an alliance. There are other precursor facilities, other technologies waiting to be understood. Together, we can ensure they benefit all species, not just those who blindly follow ancient rules. The hologram's form began to fade. You have changed more than just protocols today. You have changed the future of galactic civilization itself. Use this wisdom well. As they prepared to return to the horizon, Sarah took one last look at the facility's central chamber. The patterns of light had stabilized into new configurations, telling not just the story of the precursor's past, but the promise of a future where understanding trumped control, and wisdom grew from shared knowledge rather than imposed limitations. Ready to head home? Torres asked. Sarah nodded. Yes, but this isn't an ending, is it? It feels more like a beginning. The best kinds of discoveries usually are, Torres replied. As the horizon broke orbit, escorted now by the same fleet that had come to destroy them, they carried with them more than just the transformed weapons knowledge. They carried the proof that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology or their intelligence, but in their ability to learn, to adapt, and to transform destruction into understanding. The stars seemed brighter somehow as they headed home, as if the galaxy itself was celebrating the dawn of a new era, one where ancient fears gave way to new possibilities, and where the future would be written not by the rigid protocols of the past, but by those who dared to imagine something better.